Zulfi Bhutto of Pakistan, His Life and Times by Stanley Wolpert. Chapter 7, Winters of His Discontent, 1965 to 1969. Zulfi hoped to compete against Mujib on his own turf, writing a column called My Debut in Journalism for Dhaka's Pakistan Observer on January 12, 1967, testing those Bengali voters in English to see what sort of political prospects he would have in the East. Although by birth I am an agriculturalist and by education a lawyer, it is politics above all that inspires me and kindles in me the flame of a lasting romance. Politics is a superior science and a fine art. Politics must be clean. It must not be based on negative considerations and rest on sloganism and on the lure of banditry. Too many people are understandably suspicious of politics. Tragically, we have played politics with politics. We have soiled the great art. No longer will the people repose confidence in politicians who exploit their sentiments and abandon principles at the wink of favors. Zulfi, of course, meant Mujib, but as General Gul Hassan, who knew them both, later reflected, the tragedy of Pakistan is that we had only two popular politicians, neither of whom could tell the truth. The politicians of Pakistan are facing a crucial new test as destiny stands at the dawn of a new year, Zulfi wrote. A new look and a new style will have to emerge. The old ways will no longer appeal to the people. Drawing room intrigue has reached a nauseating limit which the people will not tolerate in the future. An explanation of why old parties like the Muslim League are dead. As for Mujib's Awami League and Ayub's heavy-handed repression of it, he wisely commented, terror and repression have never been the final answers to political problems. The administration should not be intimidated, nor should the administration intimidate. Criticism must be genuine and solutions should be just and realistic. In a free and independent society, there is no room for bitter personal animosity. The line between government and opposition should not be based on vendetta and abuse, but on a sincere difference of principles. Zulfi was openly appealing to Ayub to forget the bitter personal animosity that kept them apart. Compared to Mujib, after all, and his secessionist army of Bengalis, Bhutto was a politician with whom any Sandhurst graduate could surely enjoy a sincere difference in principles. But Ayub would never forget his last year in harness with Zulfi and could stomach no more of him. The Field Marshal's newly appointed army commander-in-chief, Shi'i General Agha Muhammad Yahya Khan, however, and even more perhaps, Yahya's leading adjutant, Major General S.G.M. Pirzada, would both find Zulfi Bhutto just the sort of tough-minded political leader with whom the army could work and play. Politics is a many-splendored thing, Zulfi now wrote, almost signing it waxing romantic. A politician must be patient and he must also dare. At times it is not patience but risk and daring which are required. But the risk and daring must not smack of adventurism because it is fatal to play with the future of a whole people who repose confidence in their leaders. The fine political line between risk and daring and adventurism that he drew and believed in his own mind was, of course, the line dividing his sort of patient and popular politics from Mujib's fatal variety. Zulfi had met Mujib many times at Husna's Dhaka parties, and personally they got along quite well, for both were convivial men who enjoyed all the good things in life, yet they never trusted each other. Perhaps each recognized too much of himself in the other's raucous laughter, loud and racy humor, and intoxicated passion for power that shone from moist and slightly bulbous eyes. It was more than the innate mistrust most West Pakistanis felt for Bengalis, and the other way round. Each must have seen in the other's inflated ego the mirror of his own singular ambition, and each understood that in my nation or jungle, only one supreme leader, one king could emerge and survive at a time. Ayub was almost kidnapped, nearly assassinated during his presidential tour of East Pakistan in December. Zulfi wrote to warn the Foreign Secretary at that time that India was determined to dismember Pakistan. Ayub now feared that Mujibur Rahman was India's leading agent in Dhaka and that the Awami League was but an East Bengali branch of Indira Gandhi's Congress party. Most of Mujib's supporters were arrested in December 1967, and 32 Bengali members of his party were soon to be charged with helping him to treacherously conspire with India against Pakistan. That same month, Zulfi's Pakistan's People Party was born in Lahore on 1st December 1967 at Dr. Mubashir Hassan's sprawling home. Zulfi spoke and showed the assembled delegates a sketch of their new party's flag, a white crescent moon and a star against a three-colored background of Islamic red, black and green. The party's motto was repeated with passionate approval by all, the most radical and the most devout of delegates. Islam is our faith, democracy is our polity, socialism is our economy. All power to the people. Mujib's Awami League in the East, much like Wali Khan's National Awami Party of the Northwest Frontier Province, Zulfi argued, was more attuned to Indian political philosophy than to ideas and ideals unique to Pakistan. We have to seek a Pakistani interpretation, Zulfi told Muzaffargarh's Bar Association in January 1968, explaining why he embarked on the formation of a new party. His was a progressive party, yet purely Pakistani in inspiration and direction. Our task is to bring about a general understanding between all the parties of the left and of the right. The Pakistan People's Party can form a great bridge because we have come with a clean slate. We have not come with any past prejudices and have no personality clashes. We have not done anyone down. Nobody has done us down. We are all wedded to certain basic principles. We have said that Islam is our faith, and for Islam we will give our lives. It is the basis of Pakistan. There is no controversy on that, and if any party were not to make Islam as the main pillar of its ideology, then that party would not be a Pakistani party. It would be an alien party. That goes without saying. At the same time, we believe that Islam and socialism are compatible. We believe that the country must have a socialist economy because for 20 years we have seen only loot and plunder. The People's Party manifesto adopted by the convention in Lahore on 1st December first gave as the ultimate objective of the party the attainment of a classless society, which was deemed possible only through socialism, meaning true equality of the citizens, fraternity under the rule of democracy, within an order based on economic and social justice. Orthodox critics of the People's Party would insist that socialism was contrary to the ideals of Islam, but the manifesto argued that the party's aims follow from the political and social ethics of Islam. The party thus strives to put in practice the noble ideals of the Muslim faith. Idealistic West Pakistanis flocked to the People's Party because it promised real changes in the nation's economic structure, leading peacefully to a juster socio-economic structure, putting an end to the unjust order that had kept its stranglehold over progress for the past 20 years, ever since the land of the pure was born. Young lawyers like Khurshid Hassan Mir, who had served as Rawalpindi's secretary for the combined opposition party which had run Fatma Jinnah against Ayub, eagerly volunteered their time, talent, and energy in the service of the party. The best educated young women, such as Dr. K. Yusuf, a dedicated teacher and later principal of a women's college in Lahore. And like her friend Khurshid Mir, Kashmiri by birth, also volunteered to work for the party because its manifesto and leader seemed to offer Pakistan great hope for a better future for its undernourished, ailing children. Orthodox Muslims, as well as secular communists, rallied to the party, magnetized by the force and fearlessness of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's fiery speech. He met every criticism head on, thundering in one instance, the present system is not Islamic. This highway robbery that is taking place in the name of capitalism does not even exist in America. When the living conditions of the masses are deteriorating, how can this system have the sanction of Islam? Go into the interior and see how human beings live. They have no future. Their children have no future. We have to tackle basic anomalies, change this system, and put an end to exploitation. This can only be done by socialism. That is why our party stands for socialism. Zulfi by now felt little more than contempt for Ayub and his mediocre cabinet and government by half measures. He lashed out at what he called a system, half democratic, half dictatorial. It has half a war with India, half a friendship with China, and it is resisting America by half. We need a vigorous, dynamic, dedicated, sincere leadership, and we require an ideological program. For 20 years, Pakistan has just dawdled along. Basic Democrats are the Brahmins of this country. Corruption in Pakistan today has become a major industry. Where is the security? You are from a backward area. I am from a backward area. The administration has virtually broken down. There is no such thing as automatic process of law and order. The cost of living is going up. The economic situation is deteriorating. We were supposed to be a second Japan. I do not see where this second Japan is. Even as Zulfi spoke, Ayub, who had suffered a pulmonary embolism, could not leave his sick bed. Colonel Mohiuddin, the field marshal's personal physician, was at his side day and night, but all who then saw Ayub thought him a lost person, as several of them informed G.W. Chaudhry. Other than his family, only Ayub's closest advisors were permitted near the president for a month and a half. His principal secretary, S. Fida Hassan, Foreign Secretary S. M. Yusuf, Commander-in-Chief Yahya Khan, former Commander-in-Chief Muhammad Musa, Altaf Gohar of Information and Broadcasting, and Inter-Services Intelligence Director General Akbar. Near the end of January 1968, the president's illness was reported to be influenza. In early February, viral pneumonia. Few people realized that Pakistan's first field marshal and longest surviving head of state lay near death's door, unable to breathe without pain. While Ayub fought for his life in Rawalpindi's presidential palace, Mujib, who had languished for months in Dhaka's central prison, where he was being kept in preventative detention, was charged on 2nd January 1968 with treacherously conspiring to lure East Pakistan from its capital in the west with arms from India, secured through First Secretary P.N. Ojha of Dhaka's Indian Embassy. The Agartala Conspiracy Trial, as it was called, named for the Indian border town where Ojha purportedly met regularly with Mujib's lieutenants, who then reported back to their leader in his Dhanmandi home in Dhaka, dragged on for almost a year. It proved better as a platform for Mujib's 6 points than as a way of legally removing him from the pinnacle of Bengali popularity. The trial took so long and the evidence proved so tenuous that the case was finally thrown out of court before the end of 1968. With Ayub confined to bed and Mujib behind bars, Zulfi's was the most powerful political voice heard in Pakistan during most of 1968. Politics is an objective science. It is like mathematics. Rapt audiences heard from Zulfi. At last, ready to play the political power game he had studied at USC, Berkeley, and Oxford for Pakistan's highest stakes. We must always have the initiative in our hands. We must not fall back, because the moment we do this, we shall have to keep falling back. Pressure is both a worm and a monster. If you stand up to it, it is a worm. If you fall back, it becomes a monster. That is why in politics, it is important to keep the initiative. We need internal strength. We cannot beat and exploit the people and then ask them to unite, because they must have a stake in uniting. Zulfi urged his listeners to join him in building a cadre of sincere, honest, able, dedicated, and hard-working public leaders. Was it any wonder that he touched the hearts as well as the heads of many Pakistani youth? You may have heard about government's attempts to disrupt our meetings. Zulfi told a crowd in Mirpur Khas that February. They thought we could be frightened by Gundaism, but we will never get frightened. We will never retreat. They have locked up the poors in jail. Well, let them put me in jail if they have the courage to do so. Zulfi knew that Ayub's government was investigating his personal use of government tractors and other land clearing equipment in Larkana, considering filing charges of corruption against him at this time. But he also knew that Ayub and other ministers were at least as guilty of similar private misuse of public funds. And as a barrister, he understood how hard it was to prove conspiracy by direct evidence. As Ayub's law secretary would note in Zulfi's file, it may not be possible to succeed in obtaining a conviction in an ordinary court. To Sindh's Nawab Shah Bar Association, Zulfi shouted, I say that if the government is corrupt, then the people will be corrupted. If your hands are clean and if you think only of the common good and of the progress of society, modern society provides means to deal with this problem. A tendency has grown to say that the majority province of this country is showing signs of secession. I would refuse to believe that the majority of this country would not want to secede from itself. What the people of East Pakistan want is friends, not masters. The quotation was the title of Ayub's just published autobiography, which made no reference to either Zulfi Bhutto or Tashkent. As Zulfi and his new party followers were more openly subjected to arrest for violation of the military defense of Pakistani rules, he became an advocate of freedom for Mujib and the dropping of all the charges of secessionist treachery against him and his Awami League. He was young Pakistan's clarion of freedom, spokesman for every oppressed group in the country. If you deny the people their rights, their fundamental and inalienable rights, if you do not make them partners in power, if you suspect them, if you maltreat them, you are bound to get alien agents among the people. Ayub's regime stood completely exposed and isolated. Barrister Bhutto told fellow members of Sindh's bar, there was nothing to fear, he assured them, because the regime's stability was artificial. This government moves like a maniac, throwing people into jails. How long can you fill the jails? Ideas cannot be imprisoned. Principles cannot be imprisoned. A political party cannot be imprisoned. That is why we believe it is essential that every one of us should work together in the service of Pakistan, because this is our own country. Bhutto, at his best, was not only a Pakistani patriot, but a man of liberal and democratic ideas and ideals, who won widespread support by virtue of his sincere belief in the ideals as he articulated them in public. One part of him did so believe, and that was the youthful Zulfi, who had deeply admired Hans Kelsen, whom Philo loved as Zulfi, my friend, and who inspired millions with his soul stirring rhetoric and fearless ringing phrases. But there was the Vedero Zulfikar Ali Bhutto as well, and his mind lived in an earlier century. His heart beat to a tougher feudal tempo, one rarely revealed in public. Zulfi spoke of Pakistan's internal basic contradictions as massive and complete, reflecting perhaps his unconscious awareness of his own basically contradictory personality. External policy is also a reflection of these contradictions. On one hand, we were told there should be a joint defense with India. That was said to be essential and inevitable. We ended up with a war against India. Then we were told that America was the only country which was Pakistan's natural friend and ally. Then, all of a sudden, we discovered the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China, and it was essential for us to have good relations with these. We were also told that we will do nothing for one great power, which should be against the interests of other great powers, and yet we remained members of CENTO and CETO, which China and the Soviet Union regard as unfriendly. Zulfi believed his timing in launching his People's Party perfect. We cannot live in the present mess. We should be a model, self respecting nation. That can only come if there is a sense of trust, because there have been many betrayals. His feudal past kept roiling up from the inner darkness of his siyasat consciousness. 2 weeks later, he was in Khairpur, telling the bar there that Pakistan's economic and political crisis was getting bigger and bigger. The major reason was that the government had lost its sense of direction. When you lose your sense of direction and you lose your sense of purpose and rely on brute force, then it is not really possible to bring satisfaction to the people. What Pakistanis wanted, Zulfi insisted, was security, justice, and satisfaction. But with a system as corrupt as Pakistan's, security remained an illusion. For Zulfi, satisfaction meant sharing power, making decisions that determined your destiny. Even with Husna now, as with the others, there could be no satisfaction for Zulfi without power. If you are excluded from taking part in the decisions which affect you, then you are not only dissatisfied but you are disillusioned. You get frustrated and your sense of despair increases. When you have something to conceal, and this government has a great deal to conceal and a great deal to hide, Bhutto told his listeners, knowing well whereof he spoke. It will naturally be sensitive to public meetings and to free expression. You will have a situation of tyranny in Pakistan. Increase in tyranny leads to greater contradictions. As to question of East Pakistanis wanting to get their own way, I cannot believe that. They are the majority. The seeds of Pakistan were sown in Bengal. The Muslim League was born in Bengal. How can a majority leave? How can it become part of India? The people are not secessionists, but what they want are friends. If we treat them like servants and think that they have the legacy of the British to rule them, then they may want to go. The Bengalis are being denied their rights. The time has come when all of us should actively work for the future of this country. Those who later accused Zulfi Bhutto of wanting to lose Bengal misread his earlier resolve. He wanted a united Pakistan, one nation under him, led by him and his People's Party. Believing in his own destiny just as Napoleon had done, he believed that he would be best for Pakistan. Mistakes can be made by anyone. I have made mistakes, Zulfi admitted in Larkana a few days later. I am not here to argue that I was always right or to rationalize my mistakes. That I leave for those who think. They can commit no errors. I am asked very often by these gentlemen who commit no mistakes how it is possible that I was 8 years in the government and why I am now against the government. But I would like to ask, what right have these individuals to ask this question? I was not insulted or humiliated like them. I was not kicked in the pants. My nose was not rubbed in the dust. I left with honor. Here spoke Larkana's Vadero, for whom nothing was more important than honor, and few things sweeter than to say of his opponents how they had been humiliated, kicked in the pants, their noses rubbed in dust. Siyasat. Zulfi continued, I do not believe in rancor and bitterness or in a negative approach to politics. I believe in being broad minded and not letting personal considerations influence political decisions. And it is for this reason that I have not so far revealed so many things that have happened. But if lies are spoken about me, I should at least have the right to speak the truth. Whoever says that I have sought a compromise is a liar. On many occasions, close associates and relatives of the president have come to me for a compromise. I have not taken a single step to have any compromise with the government, but my opponents want to drag people to their level of politics. I would like to say something about the head of the provincial government, General Musa. I know that he holds high office and that I am an ordinary citizen, but I also know that it is I who approved his selection as ambassador to Iran. It is not dignified for a head of a provincial government to disapprove of a political leader simply because he is small in size. Is height the only thing that matters? The remark was in bad taste. The governor may have the power and authority, but these don't last forever. And as for people who are not tall, the Vietnamese have shown what they can do. I say to this former army chief, learn from the lessons of Vietnam, from what little men have done in fighting the giant Marines, from the performance of little men without shoes against the well equipped Americans. What made the difference was the strength of their conviction and their belief in the righteousness of their cause. Such are the people who are ruling this country, clowns and charlatans. Zulfi was firing his slingshot at Musa, who, like Ayub, stood well over 6 feet, a muscular martial giant. But Larkana was Vadero Bhutto's turf, and no man in that crowd was laughing with or applauding Pakistan's most popular hero. Please search your hearts and tell me, are members of the legal profession satisfied with the prevailing conditions? Are the farmers satisfied? Are the laborers satisfied? Who is satisfied? The refugee from India, the Punjabi, the Balochi, the Sindhi, the Pathan, the Bengali. The government today is isolated and it has alienated each and every segment of society and each and every part of the country. For 2 months, he is ill. And who takes the decisions? Where are the institutions which provide for genuine stability? This is not the way stability is given to the people. Corruption has increased. Lawlessness has increased. Crime has increased. Prices of commodities have increased. Black marketing has increased. Interference in the judiciary has increased. Everywhere there is contamination. Everywhere there is chaos and trouble. Zulfi was at his best, for he was, after all, at home and hence felt completely confident in his powers and his political destiny. He called Ayub's administration a tissue paper tiger, urging his friends not to be intimidated by authorities, who might ask them why they had met with him. His courage was contagious. Remove the clouds of fear from your minds. Fight for the right cause. Do you think that I am not made to suffer? You do not know the mean and despicable things that are being done. But still, I am there. Soon, these will be things of the past. This kind of intimidation is only a balloon. Your resistance will cause it to burst. The government has sown the seeds of its own destruction and is helping them grow into a bumper harvest by adding doses of fertilizer with each reckless act of tyranny and corruption. The evils of the present system are like a cancer in our body politic. It cannot be cured by a few doses of medicine. It has to be removed by surgery.